It was a sunny afternoon, and the McDonald's parking lot was bustling with families and individuals eager to grab their meals. Big Shaq, the larger-than-life rapper and comedian, was on his way to grab his favorite meal, a Big Mac with fries and a large soda. He had just finished a long day of interviews and wanted to relax with some comfort food. Wearing his signature puffer jacket despite the warm weather, he stepped into the fast food restaurant, instantly drawing attention. Kids pointed excitedly, adults whispered amongst themselves, and a few brave souls approached him for selfies, which Shaq kindly obliged with his trademark grin. He was used to this attention, but he always tried to stay humble and approachable. Today, however, something different was about to unfold, something that would shake him to his core. After placing his order, Big Shaq found a quiet corner booth where he could enjoy his meal in peace. He slid into the seat and pulled out his phone, scrolling through social media while waiting for his order. The restaurant buzzed with activity, kids laughing, the sound of the fryer beeping, and the faint hum of conversations blending into a lively symphony of everyday life. Among the crowd was a young boy, no older than 5, sitting at a table across from Shaq. The boy had curly blonde hair and wore a Spider-Man t-shirt that was slightly too big for him. He sat with an older man, presumably his father, who seemed nervous and restless. Shaq noticed the man tapping his fingers on the table incessantly and glancing around the restaurant as if expecting someone to walk in at any moment. The boy, on the other hand, looked quiet and withdrawn. He clutched a Happy Meal box but didn't seem interested in eating. Instead, his eyes darted around the room and occasionally they locked with Shaq's. There was something about the boy's demeanor that unsettled Shaq, a quiet plea hidden behind those innocent eyes. Shaq's meal arrived, and as he unwrapped his Big Mac, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The man with the boy leaned in close, whispering something into the child's ear. The boy nodded silently, his tiny hands gripping the edge of the table. Shaq tried to brush it off, convincing himself that it was none of his business. But then, the boy did something that changed everything. The child slid out of his seat and walked toward Shaq's booth, his steps hesitant but determined. When he reached Shaq, he tugged on the sleeve of his jacket. Shaq looked down, surprised. "Hey, little man," Shaq said, his deep voice softening. "What's up?" The boy glanced back at the man, who was now watching them intently. Then, the boy leaned in close to Shaq and whispered, "Help me." Those 2 words sent a chill down Shaq's spine. His playful smile vanished, replaced by a look of concern. He leaned closer to the boy and whispered back, "What's wrong, buddy? Are you okay?" The boy hesitated, his small hands trembling. "He's not my dad," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Shaq's heart dropped. He glanced at the man, who was now glaring at them. Every instinct in Shaq's body told him that the boy was telling the truth. Years of performing in front of crowds had given him a keen sense of reading people, and something about the man's demeanor screamed danger. "Okay," Shaq said calmly, trying not to alarm the boy. "Go back to your seat, and I'll take care of it." The boy nodded and hurried back to the table. Shaq pulled out his phone and dialed 911, keeping his voice low as he explained the situation to the dispatcher. "I'm at the McDonald's on Main Street," he said. "There's a young boy here who says the man he's with isn't his father. Something doesn't feel right. Please send someone quickly." The dispatcher assured him that officers were on their way. Shaq hung up and decided to keep an eye on the pair until help arrived. He noticed the man starting to gather their things, as if preparing to leave. Panic surged through Shaq. He knew he couldn't let them walk out the door. Thinking quickly, Shaq stood up and approached their table. "Hey, man," he said, forcing a friendly tone. "I couldn't help but notice your little guy there. He's got a cool Spider-Man shirt. My nephew loves Spider-Man too." The man stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Thanks," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Shaq crouched down to the boy's level. "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" The boy glanced at the man, who gave him a sharp look. "Tommy," the boy said quietly. "That's a great name," Shaq said, smiling. "You like Spider-Man?" Tommy nodded, his eyes darting nervously to the man. "All right, well, you guys have a good day," Shaq said, standing up. He returned to his booth, but his mind was racing. The man was clearly uncomfortable, and Shaq had a feeling he might try to make a run for it. Just then, the sound of sirens filled the air. A squad car pulled into the parking lot, and two uniformed officers stepped out. Shaq stood up and waved them over, quickly explaining the situation. The officers nodded and approached the table where the man and Tommy were sitting. "Excuse me, sir," one of the officers said. "We'd like to ask you a few questions." The man's face turned pale. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice trembling. "We just need to confirm some information," the officer said calmly. "Can you show us some identification?" As the man fumbled for his wallet, one of the officers gently took Tommy aside. "Hey, buddy," she said, kneeling down. "Can you tell me your full name?" Tommy hesitated, glancing at Shaq, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Tommy Anderson," he said. The officer smiled. "That's a nice name. Can you tell me who this man is?" Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," he whispered. That was all the officers needed to hear. They immediately detained the man, who began protesting loudly. "This is a misunderstanding," he shouted. "I was just helping the kid find his parents." But the officers weren't buying it. They escorted the man out of the restaurant and placed him in the squad car. Meanwhile, Shaq stayed with Tommy, trying to comfort him. "You're safe now, buddy," Shaq said, patting the boy's shoulder. "The police will make sure everything's okay." A few minutes later, another officer arrived with good news. "We've located Tommy's parents," she said. "They're on their way here now." When Tommy's parents arrived, they were overcome with emotion. His mother hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said to Shaq, her voice choked with gratitude. "Thank you for saving our son." Shaq smiled humbly. "I'm just glad he's okay," he said. "He's a brave little guy." The story made headlines the next day, with people praising Big Shaq for his quick thinking and heroic actions. But for Shaq, it wasn't about the recognition. It was about doing the right thing and making sure a little boy got home safely. Share your thought in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I pour my heart into crafting stories like this for you, and your support is the one helps me keep going. I appreciate having you on this journey,